Narrator Stories from the Dark presents Beneath the Surface. The following audio documentary examines a case that has perplexed investigators, scientists, and witnesses alike. What you're about to hear includes interviews with survivors, experts, and those closest to the events. Some names have been changed to protect identities. Listener discretion is advised. In the neon-drenched landscape of early 2000s Las Vegas, where fortunes were made and lost with the turn of a card, a series of disappearances began that would expose a darkness far more sinister than the city's carefully crafted underbelly of controlled vice and monitored indulgence. Between March 2003 and November 2004, 7 individuals vanished without a trace after visiting the Narcissus, an exclusive, high-end gentlemen's club located 3 blocks from the main strip. Despite extensive investigations by local authorities and later the FBI, no bodies were ever recovered, no conclusive evidence was gathered, and no suspects were ever formally charged. This is the story of what happened at the Narcissus and the disturbing secrets that lay beneath the mirrors that lined its walls. Detective Ramirez. It started as just another missing persons case. Young tourist, guy named Eric Sandoval, 26, software developer from Seattle. His buddies reported him missing after he didn't come back to their hotel room at the Bellagio. Last place they saw him was at this upscale strip club called the Narcissus. We get cases like this all the time in Vegas. Usually, the person just got lucky or unlucky, hooked up with someone, lost track of time gambling, or decided to extend their stay without telling anyone. 9 times out of 10, they turn up within 48 hours with a hangover and an embarrassing story. But Sandoval was different. His wallet, phone, and luggage were still in his hotel room. His car remained in the Bellagio parking garage. His credit cards and bank accounts showed no activity after the night he disappeared. It was like he just ceased to exist after walking into that club. Narrator, but Eric Sandoval wasn't the first person to disappear after visiting the Narcissus. 2 months earlier, in January 2003, Melissa Chun, a 32-year-old pharmaceutical sales representative from Chicago, had similarly vanished. Detective Ramirez, we didn't connect the cases initially. Chun was in town for a medical convention. Colleagues said she mentioned checking out the Narcissus because she'd heard it was one of the few upscale clubs that actively catered to female clients as well as men. Different detective handled that case, and at the time, we thought she might have decided to take off somewhere. Her hotel was fully paid up for 2 more days when she disappeared. It wasn't until the 3rd disappearance, James Harrington, oil executive from Houston, that we started to see the pattern. By then, it was May 2003. Narrator The Narcissus had opened in December 2002, an ambitious venture by entrepreneur and former casino developer Victor Kane. The establishment quickly developed a reputation for exclusivity and luxury uncommon even in Las Vegas. Martin Webb, former Las Vegas entertainment critic, the Narcissus wasn't your typical strip club. It positioned itself as an immersive adult entertainment experience. The cover charge was $500 just to get in the door. The interior was unlike anything else in Vegas. Every surface covered in specialized mirrors. Not just regular mirrors, but ones that created all these bizarre visual effects. Some made you look elongated. Some fractured your reflection into dozens of pieces. Some seemed to swallow light entirely. The central stage wasn't a traditional pole dancing setup. It was this elaborate circular platform surrounded by mirrors that rotated and shifted during performances. The dancers, who Kane insisted on calling performers, were all classically trained in ballet or modern dance. The shows were choreographed by former Cirque du Soleil directors. It was theatrical, surreal. More like performance art than stripping. The club only admitted 50 patrons per night, maintained a strict dress code, and operated a rigorous vetting process for entry. If you weren't on the list or didn't have the right connections, you weren't getting in, no matter how much money you had. Narrator ownership records show that Victor Kane invested over $15 million in the Narcissus before its opening, a staggering amount for a venue of its size. Much of that budget reportedly went into the custom-manufactured mirrors and the elaborate lighting system that interfaced with them. Martin Webb, the mirrors were Kane's obsession. I interviewed him when the club first opened, and he talked about them like they were living things. He said they'd been manufactured by some specialized firm in Eastern Europe using a proprietary process. The glass contained trace elements of rare minerals that supposedly created the unusual optical effects. But the standout feature was what they called the mirror maze, a private VIP area at the back of the club. For an additional $5,000, specially selected guests could experience what they marketed as the ultimate reflection. It was some kind of room completely lined with these special mirrors. Very few people got to see inside, and those who did sign NDAs. But it was supposedly the most exclusive experience money could buy in Vegas. Narrator: between May and November 2003, two more individuals disappeared after visiting the Narcissus: Gabriela Martinez, a 28-year-old actress from Los Angeles, and Thomas Wright, a 42-year-old hedge fund manager from New York. By this point, the Las Vegas Police Department had formed a task force dedicated to investigating the disappearances. Detective Ramirez, 5 people vanishing after visiting the same establishment within less than a year. That was way beyond coincidence. We obtained warrants and conducted multiple searches of the Narcissus, interviewed the staff, the dancers, security personnel, everyone. Put surveillance on Kane and his associates. But we couldn't find anything concrete. The club security cameras showed each victim entering the establishment, spending time at the main bar or viewing the performances, and then eventually being escorted to the VIP area, the mirror maze. After that, there was nothing. No footage of them leaving. The club's cameras supposedly experienced technical malfunctions during the exact time frames when these people would have exited the building. Narrator: the investigation took a significant turn in December 2003 when a cocktail server named Darla Jensen, who had worked at the Narcissus since its opening, contacted police with information. Detective Ramirez: Jensen came to us terrified, said she'd witnessed something during her shift that made her fear for her life. According to her statement, she'd been asked to bring drinks to the mirror maze for a VIP client, something that wasn't standard procedure. The client was alone in there, a businessman from Germany. When she entered, she claimed she saw reflections in the mirrors that didn't match the movements of the man, like the reflections were acting independently. She dropped the drinks and ran out. When security went to check 10 minutes later, the client was gone. No evidence he'd left through any exit. His belongings were still there, including his wallet with over $2,000 in cash. Jensen quit that night. 2 days after speaking with us, she was found dead in her apartment from an apparent overdose of fentanyl. Toxicology showed she had no history of opioid use and no prescription. We treated it as suspicious, but couldn't prove it wasn't self-administered. Narrator: the Narcissus temporarily closed following Jensen's death, citing renovations. It reopened in February 2004 with enhanced security and a new feature: a private entrance and exit for VIP guests that bypassed the main floor entirely. Despite increased police scrutiny, 2 more disappearances occurred. Alexander Petrov, a Russian businessman, in April 2004, and finally, Courtney Williams, a 30-year-old entertainment lawyer, in November 2004. Martin Webb: the club maintained its popularity despite the rumors, or maybe because of them. There's a certain type of wealthy thrill seeker who's actually attracted to danger, to forbidden experiences. The whispers about disappearances, about the mirror maze, they became part of the Narcissus mythology. The waiting list to get in actually grew longer. The performers started incorporating these eerie, almost ritualistic elements into their shows. The music changed from standard club tracks to these custom-composed ambient pieces full of discordant notes and bizarre rhythms. The lighting shifted to emphasize the mirrors more. It was like the whole place was leaning into the creepy vibe instead of trying to dispel it. Narrator: in January 2005, the FBI officially joined the investigation. Special Agent Diana Ross led the federal inquiry. Agent Ross: we approached the case from multiple angles: financial records, construction permits, background checks on everyone from the owner down to the janitorial staff. One red flag we found immediately was that the company that manufactured the mirrors for the Narcissus didn't seem to exist outside of paperwork. Glassworks International was incorporated in Romania just 3 months before the Narcissus began construction, received one massive payment from Kane, delivered the mirrors, and then dissolved. The people listed as executives of glassworks couldn't be located. The technical specifications for the mirrors were classified as proprietary technology and never filed with any regulatory body. The only thing we could determine was that the shipment containing them came through customs at the port of Long Beach with paperwork indicating it originated from a small town in northern Romania called Sapanta. Narrator Sapanta is known primarily for one unusual tourist attraction, the Mary Cemetery, famous for its brightly colored crosses and darkly humorous epitaphs. It is also the site of numerous local legends involving mirrors and their supposed ability to trap spirits. Professor Elena Diaconu, Romanian folklore specialist in Romanian folklore, particularly in the northern regions near Sapanta, mirrors have long been associated with the boundary between worlds. There's an old belief that your reflection is actually your soul, temporarily projected onto the glass. This is why mirrors are traditionally covered when someone dies, to prevent their soul from becoming trapped. The region also has specific legends about what are called oglinda negra, or black mirrors, specially crafted mirrors said to open doorways to other realms. According to these stories, certain craftsmen knew how to infuse the glass with minerals from specific caves in the Carpathian Mountains. These minerals supposedly allowed the mirrors to put it simply, to hunger. The legends describe individuals being consumed by their own reflections after prolonged exposure to these mirrors. According to the folklore, the person would become increasingly drawn to their reflection, spending longer and longer periods staring into it, until one day they would simply step through, leaving our world entirely. Narrator: while investigating the background of Victor Kane, FBI agents discovered something peculiar about his family history. Agent Ross Kane wasn't his original family name. He was born Victor Kernecki. His grandfather had immigrated to the United States from, you guessed it, northern Romania in the 1920s, specifically from a village about 20 miles from Sapanta. When we dug deeper, we found that Kane had made 3 trips to Romania in the 2 years before opening the Narcissus. Each time, his visa application stated he was visiting family connections. He spent most of his time in the Sapanta region, according to his travel records. Narrator: in March 2005, the FBI executed a search warrant on Victor Kane's private residence in Henderson, Nevada. What they discovered in his home office was disturbing. Agent Ross: the walls were covered with photographs, dozens of them, of all 7 victims who had disappeared from the Narcissus. But these weren't surveillance photos or pictures taken inside the club. These appeared to be much older photographs, some looking decades old despite featuring people who had only recently vanished. Even more bizarre, the individuals in the photos appeared to be wearing period clothing from different eras, the 1970s, the 1950s, the 1920s, and even earlier. Yet their faces were unmistakably those of our victims. In one particularly disturbing image that appeared to be from the early 1900s, we saw the face of Eric Sandoval, the first victim, staring back at the camera from what looked like a mining camp. Each photo had a date written on the back, with the earliest being from 1897. The most recent was dated December 2022, 18 years in the future from when we found them. Narrator: Kane was taken into custody for questioning, but maintained his innocence. No hard evidence directly connected him to the disappearances. After 72 hours, he was released. 10 days later, the Narcissus caught fire in the early morning hours. By the time firefighters contained the blaze, the building was essentially gutted. Arson investigators later determined that the fire had been deliberately set, with accelerants focused particularly around the area known as the Mirror Maze. Fire Marshal Jenkins: it was a professional job. Somebody knew exactly what they were doing and what they wanted to destroy. The accelerant pattern showed a clear focus on the back room, the VIP area they called the Mirror Maze. That section burned so hot that the aluminum supports in the walls had actually melted. The strange thing was the glass. Most mirrors would shatter in that kind of heat, but according to witness statements from my team, these mirrors didn't break, they melted. And some of my guys reported seeing, well, it sounds crazy, but they described seeing what looked like faces in the molten glass. Distorted human features that seemed to be screaming. After the fire was out and we went in to investigate, we couldn't find any remains of the mirrors at all. Just empty frames and mounting hardware. It was like the glass had completely evaporated in the heat, which is physically impossible. Narrator Victor Kane disappeared the night of the fire. His bank accounts were emptied the previous day, and his private jet departed from a small airstrip outside Henderson, bound for Romania. The flight plan was filed, but the aircraft never arrived at its destination. No wreckage was ever found, and Kane has never been seen again. In the aftermath, FBI agents discovered one final piece of evidence in the ruins of the Narcissus. Agent Ross, in what would have been Kane's office, we found a safe embedded in the concrete foundation. Inside was a single journal, partially burned, but still readable. It appeared to be written in Kane's handwriting, but the content was disturbing, to say the least. The journal detailed what he called the feeding cycle. According to his writings, the mirrors required 7 reflections every cycle to maintain what he referred to as the way through. He wrote about his family's multi-generational obligation to those on the other side, and how they had been providing passages since the 1890s. Most disturbing were the passages where he wrote about previous collections in other locations, a photography studio in New York in the 1920s, a beauty salon in Chicago in the 1950s, a disco in Los Angeles in the 1970s, all places with mirrors as a central feature. The final page contained a list of names, all 7 of our victims, with the notation complete for this doorway, followed by coordinates for a location in the Nevada desert. Narrator FBI agents and search teams investigated the coordinates, finding only an unusual rock formation, a natural arch of dark stone approximately 15 feet high. No evidence of the missing persons was discovered at the site. However, one unusual phenomenon was noted by multiple agents. Agent Ross, when photographed from certain angles, the arch appeared to have reflective properties, despite being made of ordinary stone. Digital cameras would sometimes capture what appeared to be human figures standing within the arch, though nothing was visible to the naked eye. Equipment malfunctions were common in the area. Batteries would drain unexpectedly. Recording devices would capture only static. We brought in geologists who identified unusual mineral compounds in the stone, similar to compounds found in trace amounts in the debris from the mirrors at the Narcissus. They theorized that the arch might be the source of the material Kane's mirrors had been created from. After 3 weeks of investigation with no concrete findings, the site was abandoned. 6 months later, a geological survey team reported that the arch had collapsed in what appeared to be a natural erosion event. By the time investigators returned to the site, all traces of the unusual stone had been removed. Whether by natural forces or human intervention, we couldn't determine. Narrator: in the years since the Narcissus case, there have been no further mass disappearances with the same pattern in Las Vegas or elsewhere in the United States. The 7 victims, Eric Sandoval, Melissa Chun, James Harrington, Gabriela Martinez, Thomas Wright, Alexander Petrov, and Courtney Williams, remain missing. Their case is officially unsolved. However, in a bizarre postscript to the investigation, relatives of the missing persons reported receiving identical unmarked packages in December 2007, exactly 3 years after the fire at the Narcissus. Each package contained an antique hand mirror and a Polaroid photograph. Detective Ramirez, the photos showed each missing person, apparently alive and unaged, standing in front of what appeared to be the Narcissus Club, except the building in the background wasn't damaged by fire. There were no postmarks on the packages, no fingerprints, no DNA evidence, nothing to trace. What made the photos especially disturbing was that each person was wearing exactly the same clothes they had disappeared in, showing no signs of aging and standing in the exact same pose. Digital analysis indicated the photos were not manipulated or computer-generated. But the truly inexplicable detail was the business sign visible in the background of each photo. It clearly showed the Narcissus, but underneath, in smaller text, was the phrase EST 2022, a date that at the time was still 15 years in the future. Narrator: the hand mirrors included in each package were analyzed by FBI forensic specialists, who determined they were crafted from the same unusual glass compound as the mirrors from the Narcissus. However, unlike typical mirrors that reflect immediately, these mirrors reportedly showed a delayed reflection, with the image appearing approximately 7 seconds after a subject looked into them. All 7 mirrors were eventually secured in an FBI evidence facility in Virginia. In 2012, a fire broke out in that specific section of the facility. While quickly contained, the fire destroyed only the cabinet containing the 7 mirrors. Security footage from that day shows no unauthorized personnel entering the facility, but does show unusual light patterns emanating from the cabinet for approximately 11 minutes before the fire detection system activated. Agent Ross, we've officially classified the Narcissus case as inactive but unsolved. Off the record, I don't think we'll ever know the full truth of what happened to those 7 people. There are aspects of this case that simply don't conform to our understanding of physical reality. What I can tell you is that since retiring from the Bureau, I've removed or covered every mirror in my home. I never look at my reflection for more than a few seconds. And sometimes in the corner of my eye, I swear I see my reflection moving independently, just slightly out of sync with my own movements. Martin Webb, the Narcissus location, remained vacant for years after the fire. No business would lease the space despite its prime location. Eventually, in 2010, the entire building was demolished to make way for new development. The construction crew reported numerous equipment failures and unexplained accidents during the demolition. 3 workers quit after claiming they saw faces in puddles of water at the site. The project manager found strange symbols etched into the concrete foundation when they broke through the floor, symbols that reportedly matched ancient Romanian pictographs associated with mirror legends. Today, the site is a parking structure. But ask any of the valets who work there, and they'll tell you about the strange cold spots, about car windows that sometimes show reflections of people who aren't there, about the sounds of distant music and conversation that seem to come from underground during the quiet hours of early morning. Professor Diakonu, the mirror legends, warn that once a doorway is opened, it can never be fully closed, only relocated. The hunger of the mirrors, once awakened, must be periodically satisfied. There's a particular story from Sapanta about a family cursed to serve as door openers, individuals who must collect souls to feed the mirrors or else become consumed themselves. The curse passes down through generations, with each new keeper required to establish a new door every 20 years or so. According to the legend, the only warning of a new doorway being established is the appearance of unusual reflective surfaces in unexpected places, and the sensation of being watched from behind glass. Narrator in December 2022, the future date specified in the photographs found in the packages, a new establishment opened in downtown Las Vegas. Called Reflections, it advertises itself as an immersive encounter with your true self through advanced optical technology. The owner, a woman named Victoria Kane, claims no relation to Victor Kane despite the similarity in names. However, facial recognition software suggests a 78% match between Kane and Kane's photographs, indicating they may be closely related. Reflections features what it calls the Hall of Transformation, a room where patrons can experience simultaneous past and future reflections of themselves. The waiting list for this experience currently extends more than 6 months. The establishment's logo features 7 small mirrors arranged in the shape of an arch Detective Ramirez. Do I think it's connected? I can't prove anything, but I know that I won't be making a reservation at Reflections. And if you're smart, you won't either. Some reflections are better left unseen. Sometimes, when you stare too long into a mirror, what looks back isn't just you, it's something waiting on the other side. Something hungry, something patient. And after all these years investigating the Narcissus case, I've come to one conclusion. Some doors should remain closed, no matter how curious we are about what lies beyond them. Narrator, as of February 2025, 3 individuals have been reported missing after visiting Reflections. Their cases remain under investigation. You've been listening to House of Mirrors, an episode of Beneath the Surface from Stories from the Dark. This program is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual events or locales or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel and share with others who appreciate exploring the mysteries that lie just beneath the surface of our everyday world. Until next time, remember, not every reflection shows you as you truly are.